The conference hall floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure of silver and glass that reflected the light of distant stars. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated areas, each section designed for their specific biological needs. The air smelled different in each zone. Sulfur here, methane there, oxygen in the small human section near the back. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the speaking platform, her dark hair tied back in a simple bun, her uniform crisp and professional. She held a datapad in her hands, though she had memorized every word of her speech. Around her, the other delegates barely looked up from their own devices. Some whispered to each other. A few slept. "Honored Council," Elena began, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "I come before you today with a formal petition from the people of Earth and her colonies. For 83 years, humanity has served as a member of the Galactic Confederacy. We have paid our taxes, followed your laws, and contributed to the common good. Today, we ask for what we have earned: full voting rights and fair trade agreements." Councillor Zekthar of the Velkari made a sound that the translator rendered as a dismissive laugh. He was tall and thin, his skin covered in blue-green scales that shimmered under the lights. His 4 eyes blinked independently as he looked down at Elena from his elevated seat. "The human speaks of earning rights," Zekthar said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Tell me, Ambassador, how many wars has your species fought in just the last century of your recorded history? How many of your own kind have you killed over resources, territory, and ideology?" Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her expression neutral. "We do not hide from our past, Counselor. We acknowledge our mistakes and work to—" "Mistakes," another counselor interrupted. This one was a throne eye, her crystalline body refracting light in rainbow patterns. "Your planet is a death world. The gravity alone would crush most civilized species. Your atmosphere is corrosive. Your wildlife is hostile. You evolved in constant danger, and it shows in everything you do. Death world savages," Zekthar continued, warming to his theme. "You barely evolved past your own brutal nature. You celebrate violence in your entertainment. Your children play war games. Your literature glorifies conflict. And now you want a voice in how civilized species govern themselves? Absurd." The other delegates murmured in agreement. Some nodded. Others simply ignored the entire exchange, more interested in their own conversations. Elena gripped the datapad tighter. She had heard these arguments before, had endured countless insults over the years, but today felt different. Today something cold settled in her chest, a decision crystallizing into action. "I see," she said quietly. "Then I take it the Council's answer is no." "Obviously," Zekthar said. "Perhaps in another century, when your kind has proven they can act with proper decorum, we might revisit this discussion. Until then, be grateful we allow you to trade with us at all." Elena returned to the human section and sat down heavily. Her assistant, a young man named David Chen, leaned close. "That went about as expected," he whispered. "Worse," Elena replied. "Did you see their faces? They're not even pretending to consider our position anymore." Her communication device buzzed. Elena glanced at the message and felt her blood turn to ice. The text was brief, marked with the highest security classification. "Confederacy Enforcement Fleet en route to New Prometheus. Estimated arrival 14 hours. Reason stated compliance inspection." "Compliance inspection," Elena muttered. "That's their excuse?" New Prometheus was a mining colony on the edge of human space. 47,000 people lived there. Families, children, workers who had spent years building a life on a hostile world. And now the Confederacy was sending warships. David read the message over her shoulder. What do we do? Elena thought about all the diplomatic channels she could pursue. She could file protests, demand hearings, appeal to friendly species. All of it would take time. Time those people on New Prometheus did not have. She thought about her brother who lived on that colony with his wife and 2 daughters. She thought about every insult, every dismissal, every unfair trade agreement forced upon humanity. She thought about how much she had sacrificed for peace. "Get me a secure channel to General Chen," Elena said. "Priority Alpha, are you sure?" David asked, his face pale. "They think we're savages who barely evolved past violence," Elena said, her voice hard. "Maybe it's time we stop trying to prove them wrong." The connection took 3 minutes to establish, encrypted through 17 different relay points. When General Marcus Chen's face appeared on her screen, He already knew why she was calling. "You saw the fleet movement," he said. It was not a question. New Prometheus, Elena confirmed. They're not even being subtle about it anymore. Zekthar just spent 10 minutes explaining why humans don't deserve basic rights. They're going to take our colony, Marcus. They're going to force those families off their homes, and there's nothing I can do through diplomatic channels that will make a difference. Chen was silent for a long moment. "You know what you're asking me to do." "I know what they're forcing us to do," Elena corrected. "We've spent 83 years playing by their rules. We've been patient. We've been peaceful. And they've taken advantage of us every step of the way. How much more do we have to endure? Once I give this order, there's no going back." "I know," Elena said. She entered her authorization code into the data pad. Condition Crimson. Authorization Vasquez 77 Alpha. Chen nodded slowly. Received and confirmed. God help us all, the channel closed. Elena sat in the conference hall, surrounded by species who thought humanity was beneath them, and wondered if she had just started a war. Then she thought about her nieces on New Prometheus, about all the human children growing up in a galaxy that saw them as lesser, and she knew she had made the right choice. The Confederacy had pushed them too far. Now they would learn what Deathworlders were really capable of. The Confederacy enforcement fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Prometheus system. 238 ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming white and gold, the colors of authority and righteousness. Admiral Thelnix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the righteous purpose, and felt satisfied with the display of power. "Scan the system," he ordered. "I want a full tactical analysis within 10 minutes. His sensor officer, a young Throni named Velmis, worked quickly at her station. "Admiral, I'm detecting the colony on the 4th planet. Population readings confirm approximately 47,000 human life signs. No military vessels in orbit. No significant defense platforms. There's a small communications array and some basic navigational beacons, but nothing that poses a threat." "As expected," Thelnix said. "Humans talk about rights and respect, but they barely defend their own territories. Open a channel to the colony." The view screen flickered and a woman's face appeared. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of years spent on a harsh world. Governor Sarah Mitchell looked tired, but her expression was calm. "Admiral Thelnix," she said, "I assume you're here about the so-called compliance violations." "Governor Mitchell," Thelnix replied, "the Confederacy has determined that New Prometheus's mining operations exceed the allocated quotas. Additionally, your refusal to allow Confederacy auditors access to your facilities constitutes a breach of treaty. I am authorized to take control of this system and relocate your population." Sarah's jaw tightened. "You're taking our home. Just say it plainly. The Confederacy is reallocating resources for the greater good. You have 6 hours to begin evacuation procedures. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force." 6 hours, Sarah repeated. "To evacuate 47,000 people. You know that's impossible. That is your concern, not mine. I suggest you begin immediately." Thelnix closed the channel and turned to his officers. "Deploy a blockade pattern. If any ships try to leave without clearance, disable their engines. We'll proceed with forced evacuation protocols once the deadline expires." Light years away, in the cold darkness beyond Sol's Oort cloud, General Marcus Chen stood in the command center of a facility that officially did not exist. The chamber was carved from a massive asteroid, its walls lined with view screens and holographic displays. Around him, officers from every branch of the United Earth Defense Force monitored their stations with quiet efficiency. "Status report," Chen said. Commander Rachel Torres pulled up a holographic map of human space. "First Fleet is ready to deploy. All ships have crews at battle stations. Weapon systems are charged. Stealth systems engaged. We're ready to move on your order, sir." Chen studied the map. Small icons represented 89 warships. Every vessel humanity had built in secret over the past 30 years. Ships constructed in hidden shipyards, crewed by volunteers who had trained in facilities the Confederacy never knew existed. Each vessel was smaller than standard Confederacy designs, but packed with weapons and systems that no one in the galaxy had seen before. "Have we received confirmation from our assets in Confederacy space?" Chen asked. "Yes, sir. All surveillance networks are active. Our people on the inside report that the Confederacy is completely unaware of our military capabilities. They think we have maybe a dozen outdated patrol ships. Good, what about the doctrine packages? Torres hesitated. Sir, the Security Council approved the Death World Doctrine last night. All protocols are green, but are we sure about this? Once we start, there's no diplomatic solution. We'll be at war with the entire Confederacy. Chen thought about the question. He had spent his entire adult life in the military, had seen combat in the colony wars, had lost friends to violence. He hated war, but he also understood something the Confederacy had forgotten. Sometimes peace required the threat of violence. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully was to hit back harder than they could imagine. The Confederacy has been taking advantage of us since first contact, Chen said. They've stolen our resources, dismissed our concerns, and treated us like children. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We tried patience. And what did it get us? A fleet moving on New Prometheus to take our homes and scatter our families. No, we're done asking permission to exist. He pressed a button on his command console. All fleet commanders, this is General Chen. Execute Operation Crimson Dawn. First Fleet will jump to New Prometheus immediately. Second and Third Fleets stand ready to deploy to secondary targets. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Good hunting. The asteroid facility hummed with energy as the ships began their jump sequences. Chen watched the tactical display as 89 icons winked out of existence, traveling faster than light toward a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. On New Prometheus, Governor Sarah Mitchell stood in the colony's command center, surrounded by worried faces. Her chief of security, a former Marine named Jack Reeves, shook his head as he reviewed the data from orbit. They've got us completely surrounded, Jack said. 238 ships. We've got maybe 4 cargo haulers with engines strong enough to make orbit, and they'd shoot us down before we got anywhere. I know, Sarah said. She activated the colony-wide communication system. Attention all residents. This is Governor Mitchell. You're all aware of the situation. The Confederacy has given us 6 hours to evacuate. We can't comply with that demand, and frankly, I'm not sure I would even if we could. This is our home. We built it with our own hands. We raised our children here. We buried our dead in this soil. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I've been in contact with Ambassador Vasquez and with Earth Command. Help is coming. I can't tell you more than that, but I need you to trust me. I need you to be ready. If shooting starts, get to the shelters. If they try to land troops, we have weapons and we know this terrain better than they ever will. We're not running. We're not giving up. Are you with me? Through the windows of the command center, she could see colonists gathering in the streets. Someone started chanting, New Prometheus! New Prometheus! Others joined in. Children waved homemade flags. Old miners stood with young families. 47,000 humans who had decided they would rather fight than surrender. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. We're done running, she whispered. We're done bowing. In orbit, Admiral Thelnix watched the colonists gather with amusement. Look at them, he said to his officers. They actually think they can resist. It's almost admirable in its stupidity. His sensor officer suddenly stiffened. Admiral, I'm picking up multiple FTL signatures at the system's edge. Ships are dropping out of light speed. The evacuation ships finally arrived? Thelnix asked. No, sir. These are military vessels. I'm counting 89 ships. They're painted matte black. No identification markers. And Admiral? The sensor officer's voice wavered. They're moving into attack formation. Thelnix stared at the tactical display in disbelief. That's impossible. Humans don't have a fleet. Where did these ships come from? The answer came in the form of a transmission. General Marcus Chen's face appeared on every screen in the Confederacy fleet. Admiral Thelnix, this is General Marcus Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered human territory with hostile intent. You have threatened our citizens. You have exactly one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Leave this system now or we will remove you by force. Thelnix laughed. General, you're outnumbered nearly 3-1. Your ships are smaller than ours. You can't possibly— Wait, we're done talking, Chen interrupted. The transmission cut off. The battle for New Prometheus was about to begin. Admiral Thelnix stared at the tactical display, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The human ships moved in patterns that made no sense according to standard fleet doctrine. Instead of maintaining organized formations, they scattered across the battlefield like a swarm of insects. Some accelerated toward the Confederacy fleet at dangerous speeds. Others hung back, their weapons cold. A few ships moved perpendicular to the battle plane, ignoring basic tactical positioning. "What are they doing?" Thelnix muttered. "They're all over the place. There's no coordination, no strategy." His tactical officer, a veteran Velkari named Rekthon, frowned at his displays. "Sir, I recommend we maintain defensive formation and let them come to us. Whatever they're planning, our superior numbers will—" The first human ship opened fire, and Rekthon's analysis died on his lips. The weapon was unlike anything in the Confederacy arsenal. A stream of solid metal slugs, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, slammed into the shields of a Confederacy destroyer. The shields held for exactly 2 seconds before collapsing. The slugs punched through the hull like it was paper, and the destroyer broke apart in a shower of debris and atmosphere. "Return fire," Thelnix shouted. "All ships engage the enemy!" The Confederacy fleet responded with energy weapons, lasers and plasma cannons that had been refined over thousands of years of civilized warfare. The beams struck human ships, and for a moment Thelnix felt relief. Then he saw the damage reports. "Minimal damage to enemy vessels," his sensor officer reported. "They're absorbing impacts that should have destroyed them. Sir, their armor is incredibly thick. They sacrificed speed and shields for raw protective plating." Another human ship closed to point-blank range with a Confederacy cruiser. Instead of using weapons, it deployed a swarm of small missiles. The missiles didn't explode on impact. They attached themselves to the cruiser's hull like parasites and began drilling. Then they detonated, and the cruiser's reactor went critical. "The explosion took out 2 nearby frigates. They're using nuclear weapons," Rekthon said, his voice rising in pitch. "In close combat, they'll destroy their own ships." "They don't care," Thelnix realized with growing horror. "They're willing to die to take us with them." The battle devolved into chaos. Human ships darted in and out of the Confederacy formation, taking hits that should have killed them but somehow staying in the fight. Their redundant systems kept critical functions online, even when half the ship was vented to space. Damage control teams and reinforced sections sealed breaches and rerouted power with terrifying efficiency. Wing of human fighters, small craft that conventional, doctrine said were obsolete, swarmed a Confederacy carrier. Point defense systems destroyed dozens of them, but more kept coming. Then Thelnix saw something that made his blood run cold. The remaining fighters, their weapons depleted, accelerated directly into the carrier's engines. "The pilots never tried to eject. They're ramming us," he whispered. "They're deliberately ramming us." The carrier's engines failed, leaving it dead in space. Human boarding pods immediately attached to its hull. Within minutes, the ship's distress signals went silent. On the bridge of the human flagship Indomitable, General Chen watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. His tactical officer, Commander Torres, coordinated the fleet's movements with practiced precision. "Wolfpack 3 has disabled another cruiser," she reported. "Berserker pods from Wing 7 successfully eliminated the carrier Eternal Justice. Casualties are heavy but within acceptable parameters." Chen nodded. Acceptable parameters. Each lost pilot had volunteered, had known exactly what they were signing up for. The Berserker pods were a last resort weapon. Small craft designed for one-way trips piloted by men and women who believed their sacrifice would mean something. He hated that such weapons existed. He hated that they were necessary, but he would honor their choice by making it count. "Status on the colony defenses?" Chen asked. "Active and ready, sir. The Confederacy still doesn't know about the defense grid." As if on cue, 3 Confederacy battleships broke from the main engagement and moved toward New Prometheus. Admiral Thelnix, realizing he was losing the fleet battle, had decided to make good on his original threat. "Target the colony," Thelnix ordered.
"If we can't have this system, neither will they."
"Prepare bombardment weapons." The battleships lined up, their massive cannons charging. Energy weapons capable of glassing a planet's surface began to glow with deadly light. On New Prometheus, Governor Sarah Mitchell received the warning from orbit. "They're going to bombard the colony," her tactical officer said. 3 battleships. We've got maybe 90 seconds. Sarah pressed a button on her command console. "Activate defense grid." Authorization Mitchell Omega-1. Around the colony, hidden beneath the surface, dozens of weapons platforms rose from concealed bunkers. Railguns, missile batteries, and laser arrays that had been secretly installed over years of careful preparation. The Confederacy had assumed the colony was defenseless. They were wrong. The defense grid opened fire with devastating precision, Missiles streaked up through the atmosphere, their warheads armed with human ingenuity and desperation. The first salvo struck the lead battleship's shields, overwhelming them through sheer volume of fire. The second salvo punched through the hull, finding ammunition storage and reactor cores. All three battleships died within 30 seconds, their burning wreckage falling into New Prometheus's atmosphere like mechanical meteors. Admiral Thelnix watched in disbelief as his bombardment force vanished from the tactical display. "How?" he demanded. "How did they have weapons on the surface?" "We scanned that colony." "They buried them deep," Rekthon said quietly. "They've been planning this for years, sir. We've been blind." Worse news came moments later. Across the Confederacy fleet, ships began reporting system failures. Weapons that wouldn't fire, shields that dropped without warning, navigation systems displaying false data. The failures spread like a plague through the formation. "We're being hacked," the sensor officer reported. "No, not hacked, sabotaged. Sir, there are people on our ships, humans. They must have infiltrated our crews months ago. They're destroying us from the inside." Thelnix felt his world collapsing. Everything he had been taught about warfare, about civilized combat between organized fleets, meant nothing against an enemy that refused to fight fair. An enemy that used nuclear weapons at close range, that sacrificed pilots in suicide runs, that hid soldiers among his own crew. An enemy that came from a death world and brought that world's brutal lessons to the stars. "All ships," Thelnix ordered, his voice defeated. "Retreat. Jump to any safe coordinates. Emergency dispersal pattern. Get out of this system." Of the 238 ships that had entered the New Prometheus system with such confidence, only 49 made it out. The rest were destroyed, disabled, or captured. Admiral Thelnix's own flagship was boarded by human marines who moved through the corridors with weapons and tactics that seemed designed for fighting in hell itself. They took him alive, along with most of his senior officers. As human soldiers escorted him to a detention cell, Thelnix caught a glimpse of his captors' faces. They weren't celebrating. They weren't gloating. They just looked tired. "Why?" he asked one of the guards, a woman with a scar across her cheek. "Why fight like this? You could have been civilized." The guard looked at him with cold eyes. "We tried civilized. You called us savages anyway, so we became what you feared." In the command center on New Prometheus, Governor Sarah Mitchell received the casualty reports. 1,200 colonists dead from the initial bombardment attempts, 300 more injured. But they had held. They had won. She opened a channel to General Chen. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank the volunteers who died," Chen replied. "Thank the pilots who gave everything. This victory came at a price." "All victories do," Sarah said. "What happens now?" Chen looked at something off-screen, then back at her. "Now we show the galaxy what we found. Now we make them listen. One way or another, the Confederacy is going to change." News of the Battle of New Prometheus spread through the galaxy at the speed of light, carried by automated beacons and shocked refugees. The Galactic Confederacy, invincible for 10,000 years, had been bloodied by a species they considered barely civilized. The Deathworlders had shown their teeth, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The council chamber on Serenus Prime filled with voices raised in panic and anger. Representatives from 47 species shouted over each other, their translators struggling to keep up with the chaos. Above the chamber, holographic displays showed the wreckage at New Prometheus, twisted metal, debris fields, and the captured hulks of Confederacy warships. Counselor Zekthar stood at his podium, his scales darkened to an angry purple. "This is an outrage. The humans have committed an act of war against the Confederacy. We must respond with overwhelming force immediately." "They responded to our attack," a voice called out. It was Ambassador Vasquez standing in the human section. Around her, other delegates fell silent. Admiral Thelnix brought 238 warships to New Prometheus and threatened to kill 47,000 civilians. "We defended ourselves. You destroyed a Confederacy fleet," Zekthar shouted. "You used barbaric tactics and suicide attacks, nuclear weapons, sabotage." "You fight like animals!" "We fight to win," Elena replied calmly. "Perhaps if you had treated us with basic respect, this could have been avoided." Before Zekthar could respond, every screen in the chamber flickered. The holographic displays changed, showing Elena's face broadcast from a dozen different sources simultaneously. Her image appeared on communication devices throughout Confederacy space, transmitted on every frequency impossible to block. Citizens of the Galactic Confederacy, Elena began. My name is Ambassador Elena Vasquez, and I speak for the human race. For 83 years, we have tried to be good members of your community. We have paid unfair taxes. We have accepted trade agreements that exploited our resources. We have endured insults, dismissals, and systematic discrimination. We have been patient. We have been peaceful. And where has it gotten us? The image changed, showing documentation, trade agreements, council records, intercepted communications. Elena's voice continued as evidence scrolled across every screen. Your council has stolen 17 colony worlds from humanity, claiming administrative realignment. You have taxed our exports at 3 times the rate of other species, while restricting our access to advanced technology. You have denied us voting rights, representation, and basic dignity. And when we finally asked for fair treatment, Councillor Zekthar called us savages and sent warships to take another one of our homes. More images appeared, recordings of council sessions where human concerns were dismissed, messages between councillors discussing how to manage the Death Worlders, internal memos planning resource extraction from human territories. But that's not all we discovered, Elena said. Her expression hardened. We also found evidence of your crimes against other species. The Theran genocide that you covered up, the Plaxis forced relocation, the biological experiments on the Quirix population. You speak of civilization and enlightenment, but your hands are covered in blood. The chamber erupted. Some councillors demanded the broadcast be shut down. Others sat in stunned silence as their worst secrets played out before the galaxy. Species that had been victims of Confederacy exploitation began shouting questions, demanding answers. Elena's message continued. We could have exposed this quietly. We could have negotiated. But we're done with your system of exploitation wearing the mask of civilization. So here is what happens next. You will agree to complete reformation of the Confederacy Charter. You will grant full rights and reparations to every species you have wronged. You will put those responsible for crimes against sentient beings on trial. Or, the image changed again, this time showing a moon in the Serenus system, a small dead rock orbiting a gas giant. As the council watched, the moon simply ceased to exist. A relativistic projectile, a chunk of metal accelerated to 90% of light speed, struck it with the force of a small star. The moon shattered into glowing fragments that dispersed across space. That projectile was launched 30 years ago, Elena said. We have dozens more already in flight, targeted at strategic locations throughout Confederacy space. We have observation posts monitoring your homeworlds. We have assets on your ships, in your governments, in your infrastructure. We didn't build an empire. We built a network. And now you're going to listen to us or we will dismantle everything you've built, piece by piece. The broadcast ended. The council chamber descended into absolute chaos. On 17 different worlds, species that had been oppressed by the Confederacy saw Elena's message and rose in rebellion. The Theran survivors revealed themselves, joining with human allies. The Plaxis demanded justice. The Quirix filed formal accusations. Within hours, the Confederacy faced internal revolts on 20% of its member worlds. Councillor Zekthar watched his power crumbling and felt rage consume him. No, he said. No, this will not stand. The Velkari have maintained the peace of the Confederacy for 5,000 years. We will not be threatened by upstart Deathworlders who think violence makes them strong. He activated his emergency authority codes, a power granted to senior councillors only in times of existential crisis. I am assuming command of the Grand Armada. All Velkari forces are hereby mobilized. We will crush the human military and occupy their homeworld. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Confederacy. His aide, a younger Velkari named Silthar, looked uncertain. Counselor, the humans just demonstrated military capabilities we didn't know existed. Perhaps we should negotiate. Negotiate? Zekthar's eyes blazed. We are the Velkari. We tamed the stars when these humans were still living in caves. We built the Confederacy. We made civilization possible. And now you want me to bow to them because they won one battle through trickery and barbarism? Never. Mobilize the Armada. We leave for human space within the day. Over the next 48 hours, the Velkari Grand Armada assembled 1,847 warships, the largest military force in Confederacy history. They were the pride of Velkari engineering, ships that had pacified 100 rebellions that had maintained peace for millennia. Counselor Zekthar took personal command from the flagship Eternal Honor, surrounded by his most loyal officers and crew. "We will strike at the human fortress world of Ragnarok," Zekthar announced. "Intelligence suggests it is their primary military installation. We will destroy it, capture their General Chen, and show the galaxy that the Confederacy cannot be threatened." The Armada entered faster than light travel, carrying with it the pride and fury of an ancient civilization that refused to believe it could be defeated by a species it had always considered inferior. On Earth, in the hidden command center beneath the Rockies, General Chen received word of the Velkari mobilization. He stood before a holographic display showing the enemy fleet, studying their formation and trajectory. "They took the bait," Commander Torres said. "They're heading straight for Ragnarok." "Of course they are," Chen replied. "Zekthar is too proud to do anything else. He sees this as a matter of honor now. He'll throw everything at us to prove the Velkari are still dominant." "Sir, even with our full military, we're outnumbered more than 10 to 1. If we engage them directly—" "We won't," Chen interrupted. "We're not going to fight their battle. We're going to fight ours. Activate the gauntlet. Make sure every ship knows their role, and contact our people throughout Confederacy space. It's time for Phase 2. Torres nodded and began issuing orders. Around them, the command center hummed with activity as humanity prepared for its greatest gamble yet. Chen looked at the display showing the Velkari fleet, countless ships carrying thousands of soldiers who believed they were invincible. He thought about the cost of what was coming, the lives that would be lost on both sides. But he also thought about Elena's nieces on New Prometheus, about every human child growing up under Confederacy oppression, about all the other species who had suffered in silence. "I'm sorry it came to this," he said quietly, "but you should have left us alone." The Velkari Grand Armada jumped toward Ragnarok, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea they were flying into the deadliest trap humanity had ever constructed. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see which force would triumph, ancient pride or death-world desperation. The Velkari Grand Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Ragnarok system, and Counselor Zekthar felt satisfaction course through him. Before them lay a single fortified world, orbited by what appeared to be the entire human defense fleet, maybe 60 ships, small and clustered around their fortress like frightened animals. "They've gathered everything they have left," Zekthar said from his command throne aboard the Eternal Honor. "One decisive battle, and we end this human arrogance forever. All ships advance in formation. Maintain unity. Show them the power of true civilization." The Armada moved forward like a wall of metal and light, 1,847 warships advancing with perfect coordination. The human fleet, outnumbered more than 30 to 1, began to retreat toward Ragnarok. "They're running," Silthar observed. "Should we pursue at full speed?" "No," Zekthar said. "Maintain formation. I want them to see us coming. I want them to feel the weight of their mistake before we crush them." What Zekthar didn't see was the smile on General Chen's face, watching from the Indomitable as the Velkari fleet entered exactly where he wanted them. The Ragnarok system was filled with debris, the remains of old mining operations, abandoned stations, and what appeared to be destroyed ships from previous battles. The Velkari fleet had to navigate through it carefully to maintain their formation. As they advanced, the human ships continued to fall back, firing sporadically, doing minimal damage. "This is pathetic," Zekthar muttered. "Is this the fierce resistance they promised? They're barely fighting." The first explosion came from nowhere. A Velkari destroyer simply vanished in a flash of light and debris. Then another. Then 5 more mines, the tactical officer shouted. "The debris field is filled with automated weapons. They're activating as we pass through. All ships, point defense active," Zekthar ordered. "Destroy the mines as we advance." This changes nothing, but it did change things. The mines forced the Armada to slow down, to spread their formation, to divert weapons and attention to defensive actions. And as they did, the human ships struck. They came from behind asteroids and dead stations, small craft moving too fast to track easily. They didn't try to engage in traditional combat. Instead, they fired and ran, leading the Velkari ships deeper into the debris field. Every time a Velkari formation broke ranks to pursue, automated weapons platforms hidden in the wreckage opened fire. "It's a trap," Silthar said. Sir, we need to pull back, reassess. No. Zekthar slammed his fist on his throne. We don't retreat from inferior opponents. Push through. The humans are delaying the inevitable. The Armada pressed forward, losing ships to mines, to ambushes, to weapons platforms that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. The humans led them on a twisting path through the debris field, what the tactical officer now identified as something called the Gauntlet. Hours passed. The Velkari kept advancing, kept taking losses. 100 ships destroyed. 200. 300. 400. Every meter of space was contested. Every advantage the humans could find was exploited. They fought like the debris field itself was their weapon, using every rock and piece of wreckage as cover or as a trap. This is insane, the sensor officer reported. They're taking losses too. They've lost at least 20 ships, but they keep fighting. Why don't they break? Zekthar knew why. He had spent his entire life underestimating humans, and now he was paying the price. They weren't fighting to win a glorious victory. They were fighting to make every Velkari death as expensive as possible. They were fighting with the desperation of people who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Finally, after 6 hours of brutal combat, the Velkari Armada broke through the gauntlet. 600 ships had been destroyed in the crossing, but more than 1,200 remained. The human fleet reduced to maybe 30 vessels clustered near Ragnarok's orbit. We have them, Zekthar said. They have nowhere left to run. All ships prepare for final assault. We'll destroy every last one of them. The Velkari fleet formed up for the killing blow. The human ships didn't try to escape. They just held position as if waiting. A transmission came through. General Chen appeared on every Velkari screen. Counselor Zekthar, Chen said. You called us savages. You said we couldn't build a civilization, that we were too violent, too primitive. You were wrong about many things, but maybe you were right about one. We are violent. We did evolve on a death world. And now let me show you what that really means. Before Zekthar could respond, the human ships began broadcasting evacuation signals. Escape pods launched from every vessel, thousands of them, shooting away from the fleet at maximum speed. What are they doing? Silthar asked. They're abandoning their ships? Then Zekthar understood and his blood turned cold. No, they wouldn't. Every human ship detonated simultaneously, not from weapons fire, but from deliberately overloading their fusion reactors. 30 ships, each one a miniature sun, exploding in a coordinated pattern designed to maximize the blast radius. The explosions overlapped, creating a cascade of energy that expanded like a wall of destruction. The Velkari fleet, clustered together for their final attack, had nowhere to go. Ships tried to jump to faster-than-light travel, but the explosions disrupted their engines. They tried to raise shields, but the coordinated detonations overwhelmed every defense. In less than 30 seconds, 700 more Velkari ships were destroyed or crippled beyond repair. When the flames finally cleared, fewer than 500 Velkari ships remained operational. The pride of their civilization, the Grand Armada that had kept peace for millennia, was shattered. Zekthar sat in his command throne, staring at the tactical display that showed the wreckage of his fleet. Around him, officers stood in shocked silence. They had won, technically. The human fleet was destroyed. But at what cost? They were in those ships, Silthar whispered. The crews had evacuated, but they flew their ships to this exact position, knowing what would happen. They used themselves as bait. A new transmission came through. The human escape pods had been recovered by ships that jumped in from outside the system, the second and third fleets that Chen had held in reserve. The pods were safe. The crews had survived. They had abandoned their ships hours before the final battle, leaving them on automated control. General Chen's face appeared again. That's the difference between us, Counselor. We value our people enough to save them when we can, but we're also willing to sacrifice everything, even our most powerful weapons, if it means protecting our future. Your ships represented your pride. Ours represented our determination. Which do you think is more important? The transmission ended and Zekthar finally understood. He had lost. Not just the battle, but everything it represented. The Velkari had defined themselves by their military superiority, their ancient pride, their belief that they were more civilized than everyone else. The humans had just proved that all of that meant nothing against opponents who were willing to do whatever it took to win. All ships, Zekthar said quietly, return to Confederacy space. The battle is over. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Confederacy collapsed. The revelations of corruption and exploitation, combined with military defeats, shattered the authority the Council had maintained for thousands of years. Species after species declared independence or demanded reforms. A new coalition formed, built on principles of equality and mutual respect. They called it the Free Worlds Alliance. Humanity took a founding seat at the table, not because they had conquered anyone, but because they had proved they couldn't be conquered. Elena Vasquez and General Chen stood together at the memorial, on Earth a simple stone monument listing the names of everyone who had died in the war. Thousands of names, each one representing a person who had sacrificed everything for a chance at a better future. Was it worth it? Elena asked quietly. Chen was silent for a long moment. Ask me again in 50 years. Ask the children who'll grow up in a galaxy where humans aren't second-class citizens. Ask the other species who were freed from Confederacy oppression. Maybe they'll have an answer. And Zekthar? He's awaiting trial for war crimes, along with 37 other Confederacy officials. The new alliance is trying to build something better. A system where no species is above the law, where might doesn't make right. Elena looked at the memorial, at all those names carved in stone. We became what they feared. We proved we could be as violent as any species in the galaxy. No, Chen said. We proved we could match any violence brought against us. That's different. We didn't want this war. We tried peace for 83 years. But when they forced our hand, we showed them that Deathworlders survive by being tougher, meaner, and more determined than anything that tries to kill them. Somewhere in a detention facility on neutral ground, former Counselor Zekthar sat in a cell designed for his species' needs. He had spent his entire life believing the Velkari were superior. That civilization meant elegance and tradition, and ancient honor. He had been wrong. The humans had taught him the hardest lesson of his life. That true civilization wasn't about appearing peaceful while exploiting those weaker than you. It was about defending your values even when the cost was terrible. It was about being willing to sacrifice everything for those you loved. They weren't savages, he said to the empty cell. We were. On Earth, children played in parks, unaware of the war that had bought their freedom. On New Prometheus, colonists rebuilt their homes, their flag flying proudly above a world they had refused to surrender. Across dozens of systems, species that had been oppressed now lived free, their voices heard in a government built on equality rather than exploitation. The galaxy had learned a lesson written in fire and sacrifice, that the species from the death world would no longer be pushed around, that humanity would meet peace with friendship and aggression with overwhelming force, that Deathworlders, when finally pushed too far, would burn down the existing order and build something better from the ashes. The age of the Galactic Confederacy was over. The age of the Free Worlds Alliance had begun, and at its heart stood humanity, scarred, determined, and finally truly free. The giant spaceship of the Nigma Empire moved slowly through space toward the much smaller human ship. Commander Kate Winters watched from the window of her ship, the EDS Challenger. The Nigma ship was huge, at least 20 times bigger than any human ship, with a smooth surface that seemed to swallow light instead of reflecting it. They're calling us again, Commander, said Lieutenant Frank Bennett from his station. Same message as before. Kate nodded. The Nigma Empire had found Earth only 3 months ago. Since then, they kept saying the same thing. Join our empire. Or face the consequences. Humans, now united as the Earth Alliance, wanted to talk instead of just giving in. Open the channel, Kate said, fixing her uniform. The screen turned on, showing Admiral Zekthar. He had purple scaly skin and 8 eyes that blinked on their own. He looked at her with what she knew was amusement. Commander Winters, he said, his voice sounding smooth because of the translator. Your kind still makes me laugh. You still think you can talk terms with the Nigma Empire. Kate kept her polite smile. Admiral, we looked at your plan for Earth to join your empire. We have A different plan to suggest. All 8 of the Admiral's eyes blinked at once, which was how the Nigma showed laughter. There is no other plan, Commander. You either accept or die. You humans don't understand the simple truth. Power is everything, and the Nigma Empire has all the power. What we understand, Admiral, Kate said carefully, is that your empire is growing too fast. You're using too many resources. The way you travel faster than light has caused problems in space in 3 sectors. The Admiral's face changed, his upper eyes getting narrow. You talk about things you don't understand. Actually, Kate went on, our scientists have studied the strange things your ships leave behind. We've found a pattern that's getting worse. If you keep using your current faster-than-light technology, you risk causing a chain reaction of failures. Human pride. The Admiral shouted. Your kind has barely learned to travel between stars, and you think you can teach the Nigma Empire about physics we mastered 10,000 years ago? Kate kept looking right at him. Sometimes new eyes see what old eyes have stopped noticing. We're sending our findings to you now. At least look at them before you dismiss our concerns. The Admiral waved his hand. I will let my scientists look at your simple analysis, if only to show how wrong it is. You have 3 days to get your world ready to join us. Any resistance will lead to immediate destruction. The call ended, and Kate let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Do you think they'll actually look at our data? Frank asked, quietly. Kate turned away from the screen, her face serious. No, but we tried talking first. Now we get ready for Plan B. Dr. Alan Meyer bent over his desk in the underground lab deep in the Rocky Mountains. Around him, many of Earth's best scientists and engineers worked quietly but intensely. They had been working for weeks ever since the Nigma Empire had ignored humanity's warnings about their faster-than-light technology. How are the test runs looking? Asked Dr. Olivia Grant, who helped lead the project, as she walked to Alan's desk. Alan pointed at the 3D image floating above his desk. Not good. According to our models, the Nigma have already gone past the point of no return. The fabric of space around their main travel routes is showing tiny cracks. If they make another big jump with their fleet... He didn't finish his sentence. The test run showed it clearly enough. A spreading tear that would eat up not just the ships using the route but possibly entire star systems along the break lines. We need to warn them again, Olivia said, rubbing her tired eyes. More strongly this time. They didn't listen before. Why would they listen now? Alan asked. The lab doors opened, and Commander Kate Winters walked in with General Laura Reyes, of Earth Alliance Defense. Because this time, Kate said, having heard their talk, we'll be showing them, not just explaining. General Reyes nodded grimly. The Security Council has approved Operation Cassandra. We're sending a team to the Proxima Centauri testing grounds. Alan stood up straight, suddenly not feeling as tired. You're going to show them a controlled test of the effect? Exactly, Kate confirmed. We've built a small version of their faster-than-light drive based on the scans we took. We're inviting the Nigma to watch what happens when we push it past the safe limit. They'll come, General Reyes added, if only because they're curious about how we copied their technology so quickly. Olivia looked worried. Even a controlled test is risky. The math has to be perfect to keep the reaction contained. Alan pulled up another test run. We've run this scenario hundreds of times. As long as we keep the safety field at exactly these settings, the reaction will stop itself before it can spread. Good, said Kate. Because we only get one chance to convince them. The Nigma fleet is still moving toward Earth. They'll be close enough to attack in less than 2 weeks. And if they don't believe us even after the demonstration? Alan asked. Quietly, General Reyes's face hardened. Then we used the backup plan. The room went silent as everyone thought about what that meant. The backup plan was a desperate move that might save humanity, but at a terrible cost. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Kate said firmly. Get your teams ready to leave for Proxima Centauri in 6 hours. We need everything ready before the Nigma observers arrive. Admiral Zakatar sat in his private chamber on the Nigma mothership, staring at the data the humans had sent. He didn't want to admit it, but their findings disturbed him. If they were right, His aide entered after a quick knock. "Admiral, the human data has been analyzed by Science Division." "And?" the Admiral asked, not looking up. "They say..." The aide hesitated. "They say the humans might be right. The space-time tiers are real. Our scientists have noticed similar readings but thought they were unimportant." The Admiral's scales darkened with anger. "Unimportant? Why wasn't I told?" "The Science Council didn't think it was serious. They said the effect was too small to matter." Admiral Zektar stood suddenly. "Too small to matter? The humans are saying these small tiers will join together and cause a disaster." "Yes, Admiral. They call it a cascade failure. If they're right, and if our fleet makes another coordinated jump..." The aide's voice trailed off. The Admiral paced the room. 10,000 years of Nigma dominance could not end because of a flaw in their technology. It was unthinkable. The humans had to be wrong. And yet, "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered. "I will attend this human demonstration myself. I want to see their so-called evidence with my own eyes." As the aide left, Admiral Zektar turned back to the data screens. For the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. What if the humans were right? What if the mighty Nigma Empire stood on the edge of disaster? He pushed the thought away. Impossible. The Nigma controlled thousands of worlds. Their technology was perfect. The humans were just trying to avoid conquest, weren't they? The testing area at Proxima Centauri buzzed with activity. Human scientists moved quickly, checking and rechecking their equipment. In the center of the main chamber sat a small version of the Nigma faster-than-light drive. It glowed with a soft, blue light that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Alan Meyer watched the final readings on his tablet. All systems are within normal range. The demonstration can begin on schedule. Olivia Grant nodded as she looked over his shoulder. The Nigma delegation has just arrived in orbit. They'll be down here in 30 minutes. Commander Kate Winters entered the control room, her face showing the strain of the last few days. "Is everything ready?" "Yes," Alan said. "We can show them exactly what will happen if they continue using their current drive technology. The simulation is perfect." Kate looked through the reinforced glass wall at the test chamber. "It has to be perfect. Everything depends on this demonstration. If we can't convince the Nigma to change their ways..." She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Everyone knew what was at stake. "The safety field generators are at full power," Olivia reported. "Even if something goes wrong, the reaction won't spread beyond the test chamber." A young lieutenant rushed into the room. "Commander, the Nigma shuttle has landed. Admiral Zektar is leading the delegation himself." Kate straightened her uniform. "That's good news. If the Admiral sees the evidence firsthand, he might be able to convince the rest of the Nigma leadership." 20 minutes later, the Nigma delegation entered the observation area. Admiral Zektar led the group, his purple scales gleaming under the lights. Behind him came 5 other Nigma officials, including 2 that Kate recognized as senior scientists. "Commander Winters," the Admiral said, his 8 eyes blinking in sequence. "My scientists tell me your data is concerning. I have come to see your evidence myself." Kate nodded. "Thank you for coming, Admiral. Dr. Meyer will explain the demonstration." Alan stepped forward, trying not to show his nervousness in front of the alien visitors. "Admiral, we have created a small version of your FTL drive based on our scans. It operates on the same principles as your fleet's engines." One of the Nigma scientists moved closer, studying the drive through the glass. "Impressive duplication for such a primitive species," he said, not trying to hide his surprise. Alan ignored the insult. "We will run the drive at increasing power levels to show what happens when multiple drives operate in the same region of space. This simulates what occurs during a fleet-wide jump." "Begin your demonstration," the Admiral ordered, all 8 eyes fixed on the test chamber. Alan nodded to one of the technicians. The blue glow from the drive intensified and strange patterns appeared in the air around it. "What are those patterns?" asked one of the Nigma scientists. Those are microtears in space-time, Olivia explained. We've added a special particle that makes them visible. In real space, you can't see them with the naked eye, but they're there. The patterns grew more complex as the power increased. The blue light began to shift toward purple. This represents the current state of your most used FTL routes, Alan explained. The microtears have begun to connect with each other. One of the Nigma scientists moved to a monitoring station, checking the readings. His scales paled slightly, a sign of concern in their species. Continue the demonstration, the Admiral ordered, his voice slightly less confident than before. Alan nodded to the technician again. The drive's power level jumped higher. Suddenly, the patterns in the air exploded outward in a web of bright lines. Where the drive had been, a swirling dark hole appeared, pulling everything nearby toward it. Alarms blared as the safety field activated, creating a barrier around the growing distortion. This, Kate said loudly over the noise, is what will happen the next time your fleet makes a coordinated jump. The microtears will connect, creating a cascade failure that will destroy your ships and possibly whole star systems along the FTL routes. The Nigma scientist at the monitoring station turned to Admiral Zikatar, speaking rapidly in their own language. The Admiral's scales darkened with emotion. Safety field at 80% and dropping, reported a technician. We need to shut it down now. Begin shutdown sequence, Alan ordered. Complex machines hummed to life around the test chamber. Slowly, the dark hole began to shrink. The web of bright lines faded, though they didn't disappear completely. Note that even after we stop the reaction, Alan pointed out, the damage to space-time remains. It will heal naturally but very slowly, over hundreds of years. The damage your fleet has already caused is thousands of times worse. The room fell silent. The Nigma delegation stared at the test chamber, where the faint lines still floated in the air. Finally, Admiral Zikatar spoke. If what you show is true, what do you suggest? That the Nigma Empire stop using FTL travel? That we become trapped in our own star systems while humans expand freely? No, Kate replied. We suggest working together. Earth scientists have developed a different FTL method that doesn't damage spacetime. It's a bit slower but completely safe. We're willing to share this technology with the Nigma Empire in exchange for peace. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. And we should simply trust you? You've seen the problem, Kate said calmly. We're offering a solution that helps us both. The other option is that everyone loses. Your fleet destroyed by a space-time tear and probably many Nigma worlds with it. One of the Nigma scientists stepped forward. Sir, their data matches strange readings our deep space stations have been reporting for years. Readings that our science leaders ordered us to ignore as unimportant. Admiral Zekatar was silent for a long moment. Kate could almost see the struggle happening behind those 8 eyes. The mighty Nigma Empire had never faced a situation like this before. Back on the Nigma mothership, Admiral Zekatar paced in his private chamber. The demonstration had shaken him deeply, though he tried not to show it in front of the humans. Could it be a trick? He asked the scientist who had examined the human data. No, Admiral, the scientist replied. I've checked their findings against our own monitoring data. The microtears exist, and they are growing. Our own instruments have recorded them, but the Science Council ignored them, the Admiral finished, because they didn't want to admit there could be a flaw in our technology. He stopped pacing and looked out at the stars. The Nigma Empire had ruled space for 10,000 years. Their technology was supposed to be perfect. Their power was supposed to be absolute. But the universe didn't care about empires or power. It worked according to its own rules. Rules that even the mighty Nigma couldn't break. Prepare a secure transmission to the Imperial Council, he ordered. Mark it highest priority. What will you tell them, Admiral? Asked his aide. Admiral Zekatar's scales shifted through several colors as he considered his answer. The truth, that we face a choice between changing our ways or destruction, and that humans, beings we considered primitive, might be our only hope for survival. The aide looked shocked. The council will resist such news. Then let them come see for themselves, the admiral said harshly. But they must decide quickly. Every FTL jump we make brings us closer to disaster. As the aide left, Admiral Zakatar turned back to the stars. The Empire had conquered countless species across the galaxy. Now, for the first time, they faced an enemy they couldn't defeat with weapons, the laws of physics themselves. And their only allies in this fight were humans, a species they had planned to conquer. The irony was not lost on him. 3 days passed with no word from the Nigma Empire. On Earth, military forces stayed on high alert. The giant Nigma ship still waited at the edge of the solar system, not moving closer, but not leaving either. In the main command center of Earth, Alliance headquarters, President Sam Carter met with Commander Kate Winters and General Laura Reyes. Large screens showed the positions of both human and Nigma ships in space. Still no answer to our offer? President Carter asked, looking tired from many sleepless nights. Kate shook her head. Nothing official. Our spies report fighting among the Nigma leadership. Some believe our warning, others think it's a trick. Time is running out, General Reyes said, pointing to one of the screens. Our sensors show microtears forming faster now. If they make one more big fleet jump, it could trigger the cascade failure. President Carter rubbed her eyes. And contingency. Omega? Is it ready if we need it? The general nodded grimly. Yes, Madam President, but it's only a last resort. We don't know if it will work, and even if it does. She didn't finish her sentence. Everyone knew what contingency Omega meant. A desperate move that might save Earth, but at a terrible cost. A young officer rushed into the room. Madam President, Commander, we're getting a transmission from the Nigma mothership. Put it on the main screen, President Carter ordered, straightening her jacket. The screen lit up, showing Admiral Zakatar. He looked different. His scales duller, his posture less proud. Behind him stood several other Nigma officials, some looking angry. President Carter, the Admiral began, the Imperial Council has reviewed the evidence about the space-time tears. He paused, and Kate noticed how some of the Nigma officials behind him seemed uncomfortable. One in particular, who Kate recognized as Vice Admiral Archival, looked openly hostile. The evidence is compelling, Admiral Zakatar continued. However, there is disagreement about how to proceed. Abandoning our FTL technology would weaken the Empire significantly. We understand your concern, President Carter replied. That's why we've offered to share our alternative FTL method. It will allow your Empire to continue operating, just more safely. Vice Admiral Archival stepped forward, pushing into view. And why would humans help their would-be conquerors? What do you really want in return? Peace, said President Carter simply. A promise of non-aggression and open relations between our peoples. Nothing more. Pretty words, sneered the Vice Admiral. But I think you're hiding something. Perhaps. Your warnings are just a trick to make us give up our military advantage. Admiral Zikatar turned to his fellow officer. The evidence was verified by our own scientists, Archival. You saw the demonstration yourself. A clever illusion, Archival insisted. These humans are more cunning than we thought. The two Nigma leaders stared at each other, and Kate could feel the tension even through the screen. This wasn't just a scientific disagreement. It was a power struggle within the Nigma Empire. President Carter spoke carefully. We have no reason to trick you, Vice Admiral. If we wanted to see the Nigma Empire fall, we could have simply remained silent and let you destroy yourselves with your next major fleet action. Admiral Zakatar nodded. This is what I told the Imperial Council. The humans could have kept this knowledge to themselves. Vice Admiral Archival's scales darkened with anger. So you believe these creatures over your own kind? Perhaps you are not fit to command the fleet, Zakatar. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began to sound on both the human and Nigma sides of the transmission. A human officer rushed to General Reyes, whispering urgently in her ear. The general's face paled. Madam President, we're detecting a massive power buildup in the Nigma fleet. Multiple ships are preparing for an FTL jump. On the screen, Admiral Zekatar was receiving similar news from one of his aides. He turned to Vice Admiral Archival in shock. "What have you done?" Archival stood tall, his scales now a deep, aggressive purple. "I've taken command of the loyal ships in the fleet. We will not be fooled by human lies or weakened by cowardly leaders. The attack on Earth begins now." Admiral Zekatar lunged toward him, but two armed Nigma guards blocked his way. "You fool! You'll kill us all!" "Cut transmission," Vice Admiral Archival ordered, and the screen went black. The command center erupted in activity. 17 Nigma warships are powering up their FTL drives, reported an officer. They appear to be positioning for a coordinated jump directly to Earth orbit. "If they do that," Kate began, "the micro-tiers will connect and trigger the cascade," finished General Reyes. "Just as we showed them in the demonstration." President Carter's face hardened. "How long do we have?" 5 minutes, maybe less," reported the officer. "Contact Admiral Zekatar's ship," ordered the president. "Try to reach anyone still loyal to him." Kate moved to a communications station and worked quickly. After tense moments, the screen lit up again, showing not the command deck, but what looked like a detention area. Admiral Zekatar was there, guarded but able to speak. "Commander Winters," he said urgently, "Archival has staged a coup. He's convinced enough captains that your warnings are a trick. They're preparing to jump to Earth for a surprise attack." "Admiral, you must stop them," Kate pleaded. "Our sensors show the micro-tiers are already connecting. If they make that jump, the cascade failure will begin." The Admiral's scales paled. "I cannot stop them from here. Archival has locked down communications to the other ships." General Reyes stepped into view. "Then we have no choice. Madam President, we need to activate Contingency Omega now." President Carter closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. "Do it." Admiral Zekatar looked confused. "What is this Contingency Omega?" Kate met his gaze through the screen. "A last resort. We created a device that can trigger a controlled space-time collapse. It will destroy the rebel ships before they can jump, containing the damage to a small area." "You would sacrifice the loyal Nigma ships as well?" the Admiral asked. "We have no way to tell which ships are which," General Reyes said grimly, "and we have no time." A young scientist rushed into view, joining Kate at the console. It was Alan Meyer, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Wait, I've been working on the Nigma drive signatures. Each ship has a unique pattern. If Admiral Zekatar can identify which ships are still loyal to him, we might be able to spare them." 2 minutes to jump sequence completion, called out an officer. Admiral Zekatar moved closer to the screen. "I can give you the command codes for my loyal ships. Will that help?" Alan nodded, typing furiously at another console. "Yes, give them to me now." As the Admiral recited a series of complex codes, Alan entered them into his system. On a large display, some of the Nigma ship symbols changed from red to green. "Targeting Contingency Omega on remaining hostile vessels only," Alan announced. "Firing in 30 seconds. "May the stars forgive us," murmured Admiral Zekatar. In the silence that followed, Kate watched the display showing the rebel Nigma ships, still preparing for their jump to Earth. They had no idea what was coming. "Device activated," Alan reported, quietly. On the screen, a small flash appeared near the rebel ships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, space itself appeared to fold around the ships. They didn't explode. They simply vanished, pulled into a swirling darkness that closed in on itself and disappeared. The loyal Nigma ships, marked in green on the display, remained untouched. Admiral Zekatar stared in wonder. "What did you do?" Kate let out a shaky breath. "We created a controlled version of the cascade failure, focused only on the rebel ships. It pulled them into a localized space-time collapse, then sealed itself." "The micro-tiers?" the Admiral asked. Alan checked his readings, beginning to stabilize. Without the massive energy from the rebel fleet's drives, they're no longer connecting. We've avoided the full cascade. Admiral Zekatar's guards suddenly lowered their weapons and bowed to him. One spoke urgently in the Nigma language. What's happening? Asked President Carter. News of Archival's defeat has spread through the fleet, the Admiral explained. The coup has failed. I am being restored to command. He looked directly at Kate. It seems we owe you our lives twice over now. President Carter stepped forward. Then perhaps it's time we discuss that peace treaty, Admiral, and the sharing of our safer FTL technology. Admiral Zikatar bowed his head. Yes, I think the Nigma Empire has finally learned to listen when humans give warnings. 1 month after the failed coup, humans and Nigma officials sat together in the grand meeting hall of the Earth Alliance headquarters. The room buzzed with quiet conversation as both sides prepared for the historic signing of the peace treaty. Kate Winters stood near a window, watching the unusual sight of Nigma ships peacefully orbiting Earth alongside human vessels. It seemed impossible just a short time ago. Still hard to believe, isn't it? Alan Meyer said, joining her at the window. Kate nodded. A month ago they were ready to destroy us. Now we're about to become allies. Not everyone is happy about it, Alan pointed out. Some military leaders think we should have used Contingency Omega to destroy the entire Nigma fleet while we had the chance. Kate frowned. That would have made us no better than Vice Admiral Archival and his followers. Besides, we need the Nigma, just as much as they need us now. Alan looked questioningly at her and Kate explained. The space-time tiers are still out there, growing in the busiest travel routes. Our scientists estimate we have less than 2 years before they start connecting naturally, even without more Nigma jumps to trigger them. So that's why the treaty includes the joint repair project, Alan said, understanding dawning on his face. Kate nodded. Exactly. Neither of our species can fix this problem alone. It will take both human and Nigma knowledge working together. A soft chime sounded, indicating that the ceremony was about to begin. Kate and Alan took their places as President Carter entered the hall from one door and Admiral Zekatar from another. The Admiral looked different now. He wore simpler clothing, without the elaborate military decorations that Nigma officers usually displayed. Kate had learned this was a significant cultural statement, a sign that he was putting aside the Empire's traditional militarism. President Carter spoke first. Today marks a new chapter in the history of both our peoples. 1 month ago we stood on the edge of war. Now we come together as partners to face a common threat and build a shared future. Admiral Zakatar stepped forward. For 10,000 years the Nigma Empire expanded through conquest alone. We believed our power and technology made us superior to all other species. He paused, his scales shifting to a more subdued color. We were wrong. Human wisdom and courage have taught us a valuable lesson. True strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation. Murmurs ran through the crowd at this unprecedented statement from a Nigma leader. The treaty was placed on a table between the two leaders. Kate had helped write it over many long days and nights. It contained 3 main parts: peace between humans and the Nigma, the sharing of Earth's safer FTL technology, and a joint project to repair the space-time tiers before they could connect and cause disaster. As President Carter and Admiral Zekatar signed the document, Kate felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had avoided war. They had saved both species from destruction. Now the real work could begin. 2 days later, Kate stood with Alan and Olivia in the newly established Joint Research Center near Jupiter. The space station had been quickly converted from a human military outpost into a shared scientific facility. All around them, human and Nigma scientists worked side by side, studying data and building equipment. The repair device is almost ready for its first test, Olivia reported, showing Kate a schematic on her tablet. It uses principles from both human and Nigma technology. Kate studied the design. How does it work? Alan pointed to different parts of the schematic. It creates a special energy field that encourages the natural healing of spacetime. The tiers will close much faster with this help, in months rather than centuries. But we'll need hundreds of these devices, Olivia added, and they'll have to be placed at strategic points throughout the galaxy, especially along the old Nigma travel routes. A tall Nigma scientist approached them. Kate recognized him as scientist V.K. Moore, who had been one of the first to take the human warning seriously. "Commander Winters," he greeted her, his translator making his voice sound almost musical. "Our ships are ready to begin mapping the worst tiers. We've converted 20 exploration vessels to carry the detection equipment your scientists designed." "Thank you, Scientist VK Moore," Kate replied. "How soon can they depart?" "Within hours," he said, "though they must travel using your slower but safer FTL method." "Better slow than dead," Alan commented, and to Kate's surprise, the Nigma scientist made the blinking gesture that indicated laughter. "Indeed, Dr. Meyer, a wisdom my people are finally beginning to appreciate." As Moore left to oversee the final preparations, Kate turned back to the viewport, watching the activity outside the station. Nigma and human ships moved in careful coordination, their crews working together on the enormous task ahead. "I still can't believe how quickly things have changed," Olivia said quietly. "Not everyone has changed," Kate reminded her. "There are still many in the Nigma Empire who think like Archival. They see cooperation as weakness. And some humans think the same way," Alan added. "General Pike and his supporters continue to argue that we should be preparing for war, not working with the Nigma." Kate sighed. Old ways of thinking died hard. "That's why this project needs to succeed. We need to show both sides that we can accomplish more together than apart." A message chimed on Kate's communicator. It was from Admiral Z. Qatar asking her to join him on the command deck. When she arrived, she found the Admiral studying a large star map showing the known space-time tiers throughout the galaxy. "Commander Winters," he greeted her. "I wanted to show you our latest findings." He pointed to several areas on the map where red symbols pulsed ominously. "These tiers are worse than we initially thought. Our long-range scans show they've already begun to connect in some regions." Kate's heart sank. "How long do we have?" "Less time than we estimated. Perhaps 1 year, not 2. The Admiral's scales shifted to a worried gray color. "The repair devices must be deployed as soon as possible." "We'll speed up production," Kate promised, "and your ships can help place them where they're most needed." Admiral Zektar turned away from the map to face her directly. "There is something else I must tell you. The Imperial Council has officially renamed our government. We are no longer the Nigma Empire." Kate looked at him in surprise. "What are you called now?" "The Nigma Confederation," he said. "It is a small change in words, but a massive change in meaning. No longer an empire built on conquest, but a confederation of worlds working together." He paused. "Your people showed us a better way forward, Commander, one we would never have found on our own." Kate smiled. "Sometimes outsiders can see things that those inside cannot." "Yes," the Admiral agreed. "You humans have a saying about that, I believe? Something about forests and trees?" "Sometimes. You can't see the forest for the trees," Kate said. "It means when you're too close to something, you miss the bigger picture." "A wise expression," the Admiral said. "The Nigma were lost among the trees of our own pride for 10,000 years. Thanks to humans, we can finally see the forest." Outside, the viewport, the first ships carrying repair devices moved away from the station, beginning their vital mission to heal the wounds in space-time before it was too late. 1 year passed since the signing of the peace treaty. Throughout the galaxy, human and Nigma ships worked together, placing repair devices at the most damaged areas of space-time. The work was hard and dangerous, with crews having to navigate close to unstable tiers that could expand without warning. Kate Winters now served as the human leader of the joint repair mission. She stood on the bridge of the Harmony, the first ship built using both human and Nigma technology. Around her, a mixed crew of humans and Nigma worked at their stations, monitoring the largest repair operation yet attempted. "All repair devices are in position," reported Frank Bennett, who had been with Kate since their first encounter with the Nigma. Kate nodded. "Begin activation sequence." Outside the ship, 50 large devices formed a ring around an area of space that looked darker than its surroundings. To the naked eye, it appeared simply as a shadow against the stars, but the ship's sensors showed the truth. a massive tear in space-time that was growing larger each day. "Devices powering up," said scientist Vic Moore, who served as the Nigma second-in-command of the mission. Energy field forming. On the main screen, they watched as a soft blue glow spread from each device, forming a web that surrounded the tear. Where the energy touched the damaged area, the darkness seemed to lighten slightly. "It's working," Alan Meyer said from his science station. "The tear is beginning to close. Estimated healing time, 6 hours." Kate let out a small sigh of relief. This tear had been one of the worst, located at a point where many Nigma travel routes had crossed. If it had been allowed to grow and connect with others, it could have triggered the cascade failure they had been working so hard to prevent. "Message from Admiral Zekatar," Frank announced. "The repair operations in the Orion sector are complete. All tiers there have been sealed." Good news had been coming in steadily over the past month. The combined efforts of humans and the Nigma Confederation were succeeding. The worst of the space-time damage was being repaired faster than new tiers could form. "Commander," VK Moore said, "there's something you should see." Kate moved to his station, where he displayed a different sort of map. It showed not the tiers in space-time but the political boundaries of the former Nigma Empire. "What am I looking at?" Kate asked. "The latest political changes," VK Moore explained. "The green areas show worlds that have fully joined the new Confederation. The yellow ones are still deciding. And the red ones are still loyal to the old empire," Kate finished for him. K. Moore's scales shifted to a concerned blue-gray color. "Yes, and they're growing more vocal in their opposition to our alliance with humans. Some are calling Admiral Zekatar a traitor." Kate studied the map with concern. Most of the Nigma worlds had accepted the change, but a significant minority, about 20%, were resisting. They wanted to return to the old ways of conquest and domination. "Do they pose a threat to the repair mission?" she asked. K. Moore hesitated. "Not directly, but there have been incidents. Repair ships blocked from entering certain systems, threatening messages sent to crews." Kate frowned. Change never came easily, especially for a civilization as old as the Nigma. For 10,000 years they had believed in their own superiority. Some would never accept a new way of thinking. "Keep me informed of any serious problems," she told Vic Moore. "We can't let politics interfere with the repairs. There's too much at stake." 3 days later, Kate was called to an emergency meeting aboard the Nigma flagship, where Admiral Zekatar was waiting with a grim expression. "Commander Winters," he greeted her, "we have a serious situation." He showed her a recording from a repair mission in a distant system. A team of human and Nigma workers was setting up repair devices when 3 ships appeared. They were Nigma design but painted with red symbols that Kate didn't recognize. "Rebels," the Admiral explained. "Followers of Vice Admiral Archival's ideals, though he himself died in the coup attempt." In the recording, the rebel ships opened fire on the repair team. 2 workers died instantly. The rest barely escaped in their shuttle. "This is the 3rd such attack this week," Admiral Zekatar said. "The rebels are growing bolder." Kate felt cold anger rising within her. What do they hope to accomplish? Don't they understand the danger the tiers pose to everyone? "They believe. It is a human lie," the Admiral said. "They think we've been tricked into giving up our empire for nothing. Even after all the evidence, the demonstrations, the actual repairs that are visibly working." The Admiral made a gesture that Kate had learned was the Nigma equivalent of a sad shrug. "Some minds cannot be changed, Commander. They see what they wish to see." Kate thought for a moment. "We need to increase security for the repair teams and speed up the remaining operations." "Agreed. But there's another problem." The Admiral showed her a different star chart. "Our long-range scans have detected a new development. The rebels are gathering a fleet here, near the oldest and largest tear in space-time." Kate studied the location. "That's where the Nigma first developed FTL travel, isn't it?" "Yes. The area has been heavily damaged by thousands of years of jumps. We had scheduled it for repair next month, but now the rebels are in the way," Kate finished. "What are they planning?" The Admiral's scales darkened. According to our intelligence, they plan to use their fleet to launch an attack on Earth. They believe if they destroy the human homeworld, the Nigma will return to their former glory. Kate felt her blood run cold. But a fleet-wide jump from that location would trigger exactly what we've been trying to prevent, the Admiral said. The Cascade failure. 2 weeks later, a joint human Nigma fleet approached the rebel gathering point. Kate stood on the bridge of the Harmony, which now served as a command ship. Admiral Zikatar's flagship flew alongside, and dozens of other vessels from both species formed a protective ring around special ships carrying repair devices. The rebels have spotted us, Frank reported. They're moving to intercept. On the main screen, Kate could see the rebel fleet, 30 ships of various sizes, all bearing the red symbols of the True Empire, as they called themselves. "Open a channel to their commander," Kate ordered. After a moment, the screen changed to show a Nigma officer with bright orange scales, a sign of aggression in their species. "This is Commander Winters of the Joint Repair Mission," Kate said. "We are here on a peaceful mission to repair space-time damage in this region. Please stand down and allow us to proceed." The rebel commander made the blinking gesture that indicated contempt. "We do not recognize your authority, human. The Nigma Empire does not take orders from lesser species. The Nigma Empire no longer exists," Kate replied calmly. "It has been replaced by the Confederation, which works with humans as equals." "A temporary aberration," the commander sneered. "Once we destroy your homeworld, the true Nigma will rise again." Admiral Zikatar joined the conversation from his ship. "You are making a terrible mistake. If you attempt to use your FTL drives in this area, you risk causing a cascade failure that could destroy not just your fleet, but many Nigma worlds as well." "More human lies," the rebel said dismissively. "Our drives have served us for 10,000 years. They are perfectly safe." Kate tried one more time. "Please scan the area yourself. You'll see the space-time tiers all around you. They're already connecting. Any large energy surge could trigger the cascade." But the rebel commander had ended the transmission. On the tactical display, Kate could see the rebel ships beginning to power up their old-style FTL drives. "They're preparing to jump," Frank reported. Admiral Zikatar's voice came through the comm. "All ships, prepare to deploy repair devices immediately. Target the largest tiers first." The special ships in their fleet moved forward, launching the repair devices toward the damaged areas of space. Meanwhile, the rebel fleet continued its preparation for the jump to Earth. "They're not going to stop," Kate said grimly, "and we don't have time to repair all the tiers before they jump." "Then we have one option left," the Admiral replied. "The focused containment field." Kate understood immediately. They had developed the technology as a last resort, a way to contain a cascade failure if one began, but it had never been tested at this scale. "Do it," she ordered. Special emitters on their ships activated, creating an invisible field around the rebel fleet and the worst of the tiers. If the cascade began, it would be contained within that area, saving the rest of the galaxy. "Rebels are at 90% power," Frank reported. "Jump imminent." Everyone on the bridge held their breath. Then, the rebel ships vanished in a flash of light as they jumped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, space itself seemed to shudder. Where the rebel fleet had been, a darkness appeared, spreading quickly as the tiers connected. The cascade had begun. "Containment field holding," Alan reported, his voice tense. "The cascade is contained." On the screen, they watched in awe and horror as space folded in on itself within the containment field. The rebel fleet was gone, along with a sphere of space several light minutes across. Finally, the darkness faded. Where the cascade had occurred, only empty space remained. The tiers were gone, along with everything inside the containment field. "It's over," Admiral Zikatar said quietly. "The last followers of the old empire are gone." Kate felt no joy, only relief that the greater disaster had been avoided. "And now the real work continues," she said. "We stay